Hi guys, hope you're all well. Adam Steele here, and today a new plugin just got announced by my friend Shane McPhee from Kazrog. It's an official collaboration with Avalon, the 747. Let's see if the sound is as jumbo as the name suggests. Now, terrible jokes aside, I have worked with Shane from Kazrog in the past, but again, full disclosure, I am not being paid to make this video. I don't even have an affiliate link. I don't have anything to gain from this video. I was asked by Shane to make some presets for the 747 plugin, so you will see an Adam Steele category of presets. But that's it. Shane's my friend, and he said, would you like to do this? And I said yes. So, without further ado, let's look at some versions of this plugin. So let's look firstly, let's bring up our console meter at the top, and 747. So the Avalon 747 SP, or the VT 747 SP, if we're being all posh and giving full titles, is here, and it looks like this. So I've dropped this on my drum track. Let's play this without the plugin. Sounds pretty good. The drums are a little bit weak. Now, I did have some other plugins on here with envelopes, tapes, all that kind of stuff. Let's see if the 747 can replace all of it, because it's an EQ with 6 bands. It's got a low shelf, 2 different high shelves, and 3 mid bands, which are all fixed. So it makes my life a little simpler because I just choose broad musical yes or no sliders, which sometimes that's what you want. So first things first, it turns out you can just drag the corner of this in Reaper, probably in other DAWs, to make it larger. This is the VST3 version. I am assuming the VST2 version, it would be more difficult to do this. But hey, you get to see everything on a 4K screen in lots and lots of detail. So we kind of split this up into 2 sections. On the right is the EQ, and on the left is the compressor, which has quite a few controls. All good controls, because for me, control is important. So it's an optical compressor, and you can choose to have the EQ before or after the compressor with this pre button here. So EQ before compression by clicking that button. I usually prefer the other way around. I usually like to compress first, unless there's some problem in the signal, especially with the low end, that would be causing a compressor to pump, which is also not a problem because of this whole sidechain threshold thing here. So let's just play the drums with pretty much everything just flat. Now it sounds good, but it sounds a little bit weak in the EQ. So let's give it a low end bump. Now I'm hovering over these and it's giving me some very interesting controls. 15 Hertz low shelf, which a lot of people will say, oh, well, 15 Hertz doesn't do anything, but that's the roll off point where the shelf is. So this is actually rolling down, it's a very gentle shelf towards 15 Hertz. And then I've lifted up 32 kilohertz as well, which makes things sound expensive because it actually just gently lifts things up from maybe 5K, 10K, 15K, just subtly, without having that kind of knee of the top of the shelf being audible. If you want that, there's a 5K shelf as well, which would, in this case, I think, bring out a lot of the nastiness on the cymbals. And that's a little 2K peak dip. It's only 4 decibels up and down. So these are all tailored by the look of things by Avalon so that you can't really go overly nuts with these, which is kind of useful. Because this looks like quite an extreme EQ curve, but these are only 4 dB each, and this, yeah, there's 15 Hertz, even though it's got 24 dB either way, which is much bigger than some of the other ranges. A lot of that is going to be so far outside of the audible range that it's not doing much with that. And of course, somewhere in the signal chain, there would probably be some sort of high pass filter as well. So the combination of those, there you go. But let's look at the compressor now, because this is where it gets interesting. The attack and release are on fast and slow knobs, which don't give you any... yeah, it says from 2 milliseconds to 200, which is, again, good that we're having to listen for the attack. So let's... So there's a little blue light that tells us we're getting gain reduction, and then, of course, on the VU meter, we're seeing the slow VU needle version of what's happening. Of course, that doesn't show you transient compression, but this is a general guideline. So I'm probably going to have the compression at something like 4:1. It goes up to 8:10, then immediately jumps to 20. And so let's jump up the threshold and see if it actually compresses. There we go. So I brought the threshold down. I was going the wrong way because I'm stupid. But you'd really have to have a signal slamming the Avalon for it to go above a 0 dB threshold, which does happen, but I think this is calibrated for digital signals. So if you're getting into the weeds of this 15-20 dB range, you can click a gain plus 10 dB button, and it doesn't get 10 dB louder, it just hits the compressor 10 dB hotter. There we go. There we go. So there's a big on-off switch here. Let's hear everything off and then everything on. So that's quite a big difference. Now let's listen to the sidechain. We'll turn that on because at the moment the compression is just straight compression. Let's listen through a sidechain and see if we can filter this a bit, because there's plus and minus on a low and a high. So if we listen to the low, we can add in or remove a lot of low end from the detector. There we go. So with the listen, what I've done there is I've removed a lot of the kick from the plug-in filter, the sidechain filter, and I've added in a little bit more snare around that 100 Hertz range because I want that to be the focus of the compression, so that it doesn't compress too much when the kick hits, but it kind of makes way when the snare hits and should add more oomph. So let's listen to that with and without the sidechain. There we go. So as far as I can tell, that is now a bit less pumpy because of the sidechain. You can go to extremes with that, especially with like a master bus. I can use the kind of low frequency sidechain and remove a lot of the sub from the sidechain if I was using this on a mix bus. There's also the tube signal path, which I should talk about because that affects quite a lot the compressor. There are 3 triode valves in there, or 3 sides of triodes, which all affect the optical compressor. And if I untick that, it becomes one of the most transparent solid state compressors you'll get. That's typical Avalon. We've got a U5 DI box at the studio, and that thing is AC powered. It's the size of like 3 large house bricks. It goes down to 5 hertz. It's DC coupled. It's ridiculous. They're one of the most amazing DIs for bass. So Avalon, when they do solid state, they do it to the nth degree. So it's good to see that Shane from Kazrog is making sure this is all here. And so let's try it with and without the TSP. In this case, it seems to be quite subtle. I think if I was really slamming a vocal through this, that would be much more evident. But it's good to see that what the original hardware does is replicated here. Of course, there is makeup gain if we need it, but that only goes up, like even all the way up to here, it's only 2 dB makeup, because we can see that I'm only on average really kind of taking away 1 or 2 dBs of level, and then I'm bumping quite a lot up with the EQ anyway. So if I turn this all off, that's sounding way bigger. Let's try that in the mix. Now the guitars, if I've disabled the other plugins on this, so this is just 2 copies of the St. James from Blackstar. You can see the C meter send, that's just the meters at the top of the screen there. From Toucan plugins, you should check those out, they're free, they're great. But they mostly work in Reaper, but that's if you're a Reaper guy, Toucan plugins. Anyway, back to talking about Kazrog. This is now on the rhythm guitar group, and I do like to do a little bit with guitars. Let's get the bass and the drums and the rhythm guitar on a loop and just mold the guitars, and you'll see me in real time bring this up and make it sound how I like. There we go. So that sits much better in the mix for me. And what I've done, the compressor, I used the sidechain on the lows for the chug chug chug, and that's just emphasizing that only on those chug chug palm mute parts, it's taking 1 or 2 dB away. It's quite a slow release. I don't want it to be too obvious. And I removed some of the low end from the guitars, which I could do a bit more of, and I put that EQ pre-compression here. And so that all adds together to be very subtle and just sits everything in one nice place. And of course the expensive slider has gone up because it makes things sound more expensive. Now let's go to the bass now and add something. Well, let's add another copy of the Avalon. And we're just going to reset this. Oh, there's a preset called Bass Sweetener, which I made. And you can see how that's just keeping everything in place. The side chain is taking out some of the high end grind and low end in terms of what triggers the compression. I could probably bring some more of the 5K up to bring some angriness out of this bass. And without. And so yeah, that's got a lot of, I think that's a room. But yeah, you can hear how that really kind of brought the kind of solidness on the bass. That's even after being processed by, the low and high split that I like to do, and then using double tap from submission, which I use a lot of the time. The Avalon EQ and an extra little bit of kind of riding compression afterwards really just kind of gave that a little bit more of what I would call that polished feeling. I didn't need to rise the 32K slider so much on the bass because it doesn't have very much up in the top range. It's not supposed to, but like I said, those 32K and 15 hertz, that's not the center point of the well, technically it's the center point, but it's not what matters to us. What matters to us is the slope and kind of how that affects the EQ. So there you go. This is a pretty awesome plugin. I've always wanted more Avalon gear, but it's so ridiculously expensive. So hopefully this benefits everybody. I know that guys like let's look at the presets quickly. There've been people in here. F. Reed Shippen, Grammy-winning mix engineer, has contributed a Bus Sheen preset. Who Lasse Lammert, he's a massive metal producer, has put his own set in there. Michael Brower, wow. He's put a whole load in here. Plek Johansson. So there's some big names have put some presets to this plugin, and me, of course. So yeah, if you found this interesting, you think you might want to grab that, it's on sale now on kazrog.com. I'll leave a link in the description, and go check it out. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you had fun, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.